Any questions?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Baddies Mean Business. I'm here with a very special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit.
Hi, my name is Shivi. I'm the founder and CEO of Legacy. We automate advanced care planning for better patient outcomes.
What a badass, I know. Don't even mention it. But for me, if you have never been here on Baddies Mean Business, this is the podcast where I interview female founders and investors and share their stories and how they're changing the world. I'm your host, Riley Jennings. Anyways, let's just get into the episode because we have so much to cover today. And I believe Shivi has been traveling the world everywhere. We're going to be covering a couple different things, especially what she's doing at Legacy. But first things first, for those who've been listening for a while, you know what we do first, which is the Baddie Briefing. I'll walk you through it a little bit.
Okay.
The Baddie Briefing. So we talk about our quote of the week.
Okay.
And then we talk about our favorite of the week. It can be literally anything at all.
Love it.
At all. And so I'll just go ahead and start just to give reference. Okay. My quote of the week came because I had a discussion with my best friend, Haley, and she was talking about if you're not growing, you're dying. You know, and I love it. It definitely doesn't come from her, but I like the quote because it's like if you just stop where you are, like what are you doing then? You're not really, you're dying. You're dwindling, and it's kind of harsh, but I kind of like it.
I like that too.
Yes. And
that's
so
lovely.
What about you?
My favorite quote. So it's one that my best friend sent me a while back. I don't know what the exact quote is, but I'm going to paraphrase it. If you come out softer, it's because you've been loved. Oh. And I know that's kind of like, where's that coming from? So I was recently, I spent 6 weeks doing the Antler VC program. And in this last 6 weeks in Boulder, I just felt like I was surrounded by such amazing community, by just like everybody had such a deep passion for what they were working on, all these different entrepreneurs, the ability to pivot and be flexible and to just like love what you're doing and have that love be so contagious so that everybody loves what you're doing. And so I came out from it yesterday and I was just reflecting on my plane ride back to San Diego. And I was like, I feel softer. I feel happier. I feel like there's a place for entrepreneurship that is really community-based. And I felt that because I felt that love when I was at Antler. Yeah.
It's kind of like happened a lot because you see everybody's been like mapping out ecosystems. And for those who need a little more context, I work in the digital marketing space. I used to work in VC. And so the things we talk about are often revolved around startups and incubators and everything. And so, but there's just this running trend happening in VC and startups, which I'm honestly really appreciative of finding a community. So it's like there's founder houses that are coming out. There's like, I'm sure there's like VC houses. There's just all these little like nooks and crannies of where people are trying to build communities in the ecosystem. And it sounds like you just got one little piece of it. And so have you been involved in other ones besides Antler VCs?
So in a formal capacity, not yet, but in informal capacities going through to, of course, like we have so many great events here in San Diego. You know, when I was an entrepreneur back in Boston as well, through my alma mater at Northeastern University, there's been so much room for community. So I'm glad that it's really becoming like much more mainstream. Yeah. Because you work faster too. You work better, you work faster, and you work with so much more of a well-rounded mindset.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's nice to have some other ideas, especially when you're like alone. You only have a couple people on your team or by yourself, wherever. It's kind of nice to have somebody else to talk to.
Exactly.
And like, what am I doing?
And people who get it, who are like, I am here with you because I am literally here with you. Like I am physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually here with you because I have gone through it too. Yes. So I love that.
It's like emotionally bound to everyone you meet.
Exactly.
Okay, the next thing is our favorites of the week. Okay. And so for me, I recently watched Hunger Games and I was obsessed with it again as I was when I was like in middle school. And so I just loved like diving into the universe of and it's re-diving because this one particularly follows Snow's. I don't know if you ever watched Hunger Games.
I haven't.
No,
but
way.
I'm here with you. Yes. I see your passion.
I know.
I'm sorry, I cannot contribute, but I'm here.
No, you're totally good. I love movies in general, but watched The Hunger Games, and it was my new favorite of the week for sure. Just because I felt like a kid
This
again.
is the new movie.
This is the new one. It's a prequel.
Okay.
But it basically follows the antagonist of the entire other series, and follows his genesis story. Like what made him the way he is. Yeah. Which it kind of actually has the opposite effect of what you were talking about, because for him, love destroyed him and made him literally like the antagonist of the entire series. Okay. And one of his like famous quotes is what we love the most is what destroys us, or something like that. Oh my God. And so he brings like that opposite effect of when you don't experience love and you don't turn into your soft girl era. It's him. So that's
we need him in his soft girl era. That's exactly. I love that. I love that. I might just watch that because I love those kind of like storylines where it's like you feel for the villain, the antagonist, because you're like, I see why you are the way you are. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like this evil person. It's much more nuanced.
Yeah. So. It's like harder to hate him, but still, you still hate him.
But of course, yeah. Because you're like, it's messy. Yeah.
But what about you? What's your favorite?
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind is, you know, those little meal boxes that you can buy on like a plane? Like the little snack boxes?
Yes. What airline are you?
It was Frontier, but we're going to own it. And, I realized that I love just like sitting on an airplane, getting one of those snack boxes, and just like, it brings me so much joy to like go through, okay, like let's have this snack. And like, it was just something that I love, which is like mini snacks, the fact that it's all packaged in a box, and then just like, I don't know what the word is, but it makes me feel like so, I don't know, like I'm treating myself, like I'm treating myself to a little meal box. So that's my love for this week.
I'm about to expose myself. It's like imagining all the I like movies. Yeah. It's like when you see the business person in the movies and they're in like business class and they get the food and they get the champagne and they're like dressed nice. They're not wearing sweats or a sweatshirt on the plane. They actually dress nice because they probably came from a meeting.
Board meeting, obviously. I know that's me trying to do it with like the meal box, because I'm like, I'm coming from a meeting.
Yeah, I'm busy, booked and busy. I didn't have time to eat. I needed to get
just a little snack, hold me over.
All right, let's get into it though. Having so much fun, and so let's talk about you. Okay. Let's go back a little bit and what kind of led to like there's a lot that led to legacy, but let's talk about like your early day careers, but actually let's even dive deeper into like who you were before you even decided a career.
Okay. So this is so funny because ever since I was a kid, I was very entrepreneurial. So I was like that kid that was, I don't know, I guess I would do a lot of user discovery. I remember in like 5th grade, I realized like, oh my gosh, we always ran out of candy at school store. And I don't know if you remember school store, but if that was like a concept, but like it basically would be like this little store during like school time right before lunch where you would be able to buy things for like $1 and they would always run out of the candy. And so the kids were always upset. And me, I was like, opportunity. So I remember going around and asking the kids, what candy do you like? What candy do you like? And I remember everybody was like, I like sour candy. And I was like, okay, couldn't be me, but all right. And I remember going to Costco with my family, buying like that candy spray that was like the sour Warheads candy spray, and bringing it in, and I would sell it to the kids for $1 each.
What are the profit margins?
Yeah, that was like crazy margins. It was like insane margins, because at the end of the day, like school store only happened one time every week. So I was providing a service that was occurring all days. Oh. Yeah. And they would just know to come and ask me. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And so I remember being very entrepreneurial since I was young. And I used to take that money and I used to like give it out to charity and donate it. So for me, it was like, it was very much a way for me to be able to contribute to my community. And I remember that being so early. So I would say that was like my first job, you know what I mean? And then, after that, I did the same I used to be really into like making jewelry. So I would make earrings and bracelets and necklaces, and I would sell those as well. And so I started like having these small little businesses. And then, as I got older, got really into schoolwork, sports, and all that. And then when I went into college, I was doing my undergrad in computer science, and I added on finance and accounting as well. So I was just really busy and was less entrepreneurial during that time. But at the same time, I was also an RA. So I still, community was still something that I was working with. Just being able to give back. I worked for a few nonprofits while I was in college because I knew that I had skills as a CS student that a lot of places couldn't really afford to pay for. And so I would like intern and create websites and things like that for some of these nonprofit companies. And then, and my last year of university, I actually started a company called Nifty, which was hyper localized clothes rental platform. So the idea was like, how can we fight fast fashion so that everybody's not just going to Forever 21 and buying something? Like, what if we made it so hyper localized that you could actually just, hey, I need a dress tonight. And then your, neighbor down the street who's maybe 2 houses down has something for you. Right?
Yeah, it's like my sister's closet.
Exactly.
Or like,
exactly.
I just go over there and take a little something.
Yeah, you just take it because what I noticed was like women especially are really open to sharing their closets. And so I remember all my friends, we would always be like, oh, okay, yeah, like let's go. We have this, holiday party or we have this dinner to go out to. Here, you look in my closet, I look in yours. And so I was like, how can we scale that? And then I remember like this was back in Boston. So there's this TJ Maxx that's on Newbury Street. And I was standing outside of that TJ Maxx with this like paper prototype of what I wanted the app to be like. And then I would have these people click in and be like, oh, what are you going in to buy? Try to understand what they were trying to buy. And then go and say, okay, cool. Like, what if you had an app? What if I told you I could get you that for a nicer brand, a more like known brand, a sustainable brand, and for a fraction of the cost? And then that's kind of how I started doing my customer discovery and got people to join the wait list. Then I was like, after we built out an MVP, I basically went around on my bike, like delivering clothes, like from one place to another. And so it was like, that was I would say my very, very, very like entrance into like deep entrepreneurship. So that was really great. And then put my head down, was a software engineer for the last 6 years. And then now we're back in the entrepreneurial game.
Yeah. And so what made you stop Nifty in that moment? Where you're like, how did you like imagine your future at that point?
Yeah. I kind of was at a fork because I had two choices. Either I continue on with Nifty, follow this passion of mine, or I put my head down, I get really, really technical, and I do this again, entrepreneurship a few years later, but with the technical skill. And I like literally remember my pro con list, and I just felt like, so much love for Nifty, but I felt it was just a little too early. And I think my gut was right because now when we see secondhand shopping and vintage clothes and thrift shopping, it's so much more mainstream than it was 6-7 years ago.
No, truly.
So, I don't regret the decision I made because I think my technical skill has gotten me so many opportunities that I never would have thought. But it made me realize that like, I could always go back to Nifty. That was like, in my opinion, such a viable idea. And who knows, might go back to it sometime down the road because fast fashion is still a big problem. But yeah, staying technical and remaining that way really helped me change the way that I think. And then also really gave me the stability that I needed so that I can take a risk now to really go all in on my company.
Yeah. And so after college, you went on and started your career. And so where did you go from there?
Yeah. So my first job out of college was at Intuit. I worked on the team at TurboTax Live. So we made like the whole proof of concept for what if people actually wanted help with their taxes or needed somebody to do it with them or for them. So that was a really great opportunity. I was there for 4 years, worked my way up to senior engineer. And then I left to go join ClickUp, which is a productivity tool. And
we love ClickUp.
Yeah,
we're local San Diego.
Yeah, we love San Diego company. And then ClickUp, I learned a lot more about full stack development. I had to do front end work, which I was not used to because I was a back end engineer. But also like working at a remote company, or a company that's kind of like primarily remote, was really interesting to understand like the type of communication documentation you need to do. But also working at a smaller company was really great because it's a different way of thinking and decision making than when you're at a bigger company. And even though when I was at Intuit, I was working on TurboTax Live was a very, very small component of it at the time. It was, a startup-y feel, but it was very much in with like the big pockets, the big kind of stability of Intuit. And then going to ClickUp, it was like, okay, this is a smaller company, not completely small, but like smaller than before. And that was kind of my goal, was like, if I go to a smaller company, I was engineer number 60 at ClickUp. And if I go to a smaller company, what I wanted to do was be able to wear many hats. And I got to do that, where, doing software architecture, doing the actual execution, doing the test work, doing some of the deployment and SRE work. So having that complete full stack insight was really interesting.
Yeah. And which one did you prefer more? Is like that smaller field than a bigger field?
I think it's different. I think when you're in different parts of your life, you prefer one over the other. I know that's like such a cop-out answer, but like I'm like literally thinking about it, and I'm like, when I was at Intuit, I needed stability because I wanted to grow and learn. I wanted to take what I learned from like the conceptual stuff in school and apply it. And the only way you can kind of really do that in a more, I guess, concrete way is through a large company that can offer you the training and the practice and the mentorship. So that really worked for me, and that's what I needed at the time. And when I went to ClickUp, it was like, I want to just like free fall a little bit more than what I was doing before. And I got to, and it was really great being on like the hook for so many things and being able to say like, all right, I own this completely. Like if I don't do a certain part of this functionality will not go out at all.
Yeah.
That was like a different type of
Accountability.
Yeah. Accountability. Yeah.
And then what led to Legacy?
Yeah. So Legacy has just been in the back of my mind. So the idea itself, I had gone through, so my father passed away when I was 17 and he was 48. So it was like, I know what it's like to be on the other side of like having to pick up the pieces when someone passes away. And I wanted to create a tool that would make that easier for people. And I think as I grew into my 20s, I realized my story wasn't unique, that a lot of people had either gone through that with some loved one or someone that they really care deeply about. And they were often stuck with the same question, which is like, I didn't know all of this had to be done. Like, how would I have known, And so that's when I realized that, okay, there seems to be something here. How can I use my tech knowledge and my experience and abilities to create something that can help families reduce the stress, create a better outcome, and make it proactive. So that's kind of where the idea for Legacy came from. After doing this Antler program, I pivoted.
Oh,
yeah.
This is new to me.
Yeah. So when I first came in, it was like, okay, Legacy is automated end of life planning as a corporate benefit. So imagine you're working at a company, you get this corporate benefit. We help you with your trust, your wills, your burial, your funeral rights, your medical proxies, power of attorneys, everything. But now what I was finding when I was going through and doing user discovery was I felt like, okay, there's two parties to this. There's the buyers, who are the people who are going to actually purchase this. And then there's the users. So the buyers were like ready to line up. It was benefits brokers, employers who were like, yes, we want to offer something new to our employees, give them a more well-rounded offering when it comes to their whole compensation of benefit part of their compensation. But then when I was sitting and talking to users, they were like, oh, this is so cool. I'm so glad something like this exists. But there was just like this chasm between, hey, this is cool, and then actually executing. So I kept seeing that over and over and over again. And then the only time I didn't see that was when I actually was working and interviewing women who were 6 to 8 months pregnant or 1 year after delivery.
Oh.
And I was like, interesting. Their chasm to execution, they were like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I want to use this. And then they actually are ready to use it. They're ready to like give over the credit card. They're ready to just get on it.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. And something I heard from them that they kept saying over and over again was like, this is something I wish my doctor talked to me about.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I started talking to MDs, to health plan administrators. And that's when I realized like, this is the space where legacy is no longer a vitamin. It starts to become an aspirin. It's really, really helping a pain point. And that pain point is the fact that we in our American healthcare system do not really focus on advanced care planning. And advanced care planning is essentially having the person or having the documentation to show that this is the person that I want making decisions for me should I be in a certain state where I can't, but also what I want for my body and my well-being and my spirit and my healthcare if I'm ever in situations where I can't have a say. So it's like that ended up kind of being a really clear path for me. And I was just like, okay, this is great because at the end of the day, like our healthcare system is very, very bloated. And one of the reasons it's bloated is because, aside from a lot of places being having a fee for use structure or basically not being value-based care, we are constantly pushing medical interventions on people because we want to keep them alive, right? Which is 100% reasonable. That is the oath doctors take. That is how hospitals work. But at the end of the day, it's like some 87% of people would prefer to just die with quality of life. And so how do you bridge that gap between most people would prefer not to go through certain clinical interventions, but rather just die in their home or die in peace, not in the hospital. And then also with the fact that hospitals and doctors, they have a different ethos. They need to keep you alive, right? So how can we bridge that gap? And the gap is through advanced care planning. So if you have that written down, if you have those decisions ready to go, then you as the patient get to have a say in your care down the line. So that's the direction that I'm going into now.
And there's like a lot of layers to that. But what I think about, and from experience with it is, I'll just like briefly say is like when I experienced my traumatic brain injury back in high school, it's like completely unplanned. No idea. I'm 17. I wasn't planning anything extraneous to happen to my health, as many other people experience as well. And so I always think about the fact that like it was my parents that had to make these huge, large decisions with my life is technically always in their hands, but my life was genuinely in their hands in that case. And I just can't even imagine putting myself into that scenario and understanding what those steps would be. And my mom luckily had experience with hospitals from my grandpa having a stroke like 10 years prior and having a whole long extraneous process through that because he was still with us afterwards. But thinking about that, well, as a young person, of course, like it's kind of inconceivable thinking about that and making decisions for their parents and all of that is just very, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole idea. So my vision is like, what if we had these conversations? Like right now, doctors, they want to have these conversations. They know it's the right conversation to have when it comes to advanced care planning, but it's just time. It's like, how do you actually have this conversation in like a warm way, not just like a dry clinical way? And how do you actually get people to complete this type of work, right? So that's what I'm working with right now is trying to, work with medical professionals, with health plans, with clinics to be like, okay, let me understand how this actually works right now. And let me go in and try to replace this with legacy. What do you think of it? And the other thing that I really want is for this data to be very patient centric. So right now, if you're a patient, you've ever been in a hospital system, a lot of the information is stuck in the EMR, the electronic medical record system, right? It's stuck in there. You don't really have access to it. And unless you go and ask, in which case you might go through almost like a little bureaucracy of getting that data back. But what if we actually started making patient data available to patients? So that's kind of what the idea behind legacy is like, want to make sure that the decisions are always in the patient hands. And the long-term vision is like, we have the data that around what patients want, what they value, what they care about. Now, can we create a feedback loop that feeds into the treatments that doctors provide for each patient to have really customized, patient-centric care? Because right now, like the doctors and clinicians, they do what they do best, which is taking care of people and providing medicine, right? But something we don't really have in our healthcare system right now, which is kind of the direction that we're going towards, is like, how do we also have the patient say in all of that? And yeah, so that's essentially the longer term vision of legacy, but it seems like a place. Yeah.
What's amazing about this is that this isn't about sharing the stories after they're complete. It's sharing it genuinely as it's happening in real time. Like, you just got back in San Diego from the Antler program yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. We out here, we're thinking.
But that's what I love, because it's like oftentimes you hear the stories after they're done, and well, it's like, well, what happened in between? And it's easy to forget the steps that had happened, because it's like, who's going to remember the traumatic steps that they had to go through?
Exactly. But these are the steps. It's like, by going through these steps, and then like, you know, whether it's like dead end or, oh my gosh, another path, like, this is how businesses are born, right? Mm-hmm. This is how they're created, and this is how they sustain, is because they have the ability to be like, hey, look, I'm going to keep exploring this. Okay, cool. We hit a dead end. Let's explore another path. Or, okay, I'm exploring this. It's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And let's see if this is actually the direction we want to go. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like, yeah, it's crazy. You're right. Actually, you rarely hear about the, like, in the trenches, but it's so interesting, because I think as entrepreneurs, we're often like always thinking, and
there's always something moving.
There's always something, like, you're so obsessed with this that you don't realize how often you're thinking about it until you're like doing something, or you're talking about it, and you're like, oh my God, I literally just had this thought 3 seconds ago, and now I'm talking about it. Like, it's, you know, one of those things.
And I'm a huge believer in, like, everything we do in life is all about building our own perspectives. And that's kind of why I love podcasting so much. Is like, I organically get to develop my perspective just by sitting down here and hearing from you. But hearing from you in this time period in your life after what you've accomplished is a big contributor to what you're even going to say in the first place. What you're going to say in 10 years from now is not going to be what you're saying right now, but that's kind of beautiful too. 100%.
It's going to be so fun to, like, listen back on this and be like, oh my gosh, like, that was amazing. You know,
it looks so different now.
It looks like, so different now. Like, exactly. It's like when you go back and you, like, watch a video of yourself when you were younger, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, I thought that, or I was so wise, or I was so silly, so naive, you know, like, you're just always so surprised, and you're like, that was me though. Right. And it's like, that is why I'm the way I am now. And where legacy is right now is a direct correlation into where legacy is going to go in the future.
You're like developing a legacy as you.
There we go. Legacy on legacy.
Legacy on legacy. Legacy is your legacy.
Love it. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, what is, like, one of the most helpful things that for you in your journey so far, just so other people can kind of understand what steps they could take just to know where to go or what to do, you know?
And so I think being relentless is such a huge part of the process, and that's something that you can, like, innately have, but also something you can learn. So I think that, like, people, when you want something, you're practicing being relentless, right? And so just having that ability to be like, okay, I want this. I know that there's some kind of pattern that I've seen here. How do I either disprove this or prove it? Right. And then you be relentless. So you get that data, you try to find the rationale, the reasoning. And if it's not right out there in front of you, you have to be relentless in pursuing the fact that this is not the right direction, you know,
or ask the right person, or ask people.
Yes, exactly. And ask around. Yeah. And so it's all about, like, knowing, like, okay, one, you need to have a little bit of, like, a speck of an idea of where you need to go. And then by being relentless, you really just create that trail, and it's not going to be straight. It's going to be, like, all over the place. And then you're going to get to where you need to go, and you're going to be like, huh, okay, funny how I got here, but we out here. So
yes. Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen this video, but there's a video that's came out pretty recently where it was, like, I think it's in Japan, where they're, like, mapping out how fungi travel through certain. Did you see that?
Yeah, and they used it as, like, biomimicry to
develop their railways or like their public transportation, and they gave them their literal map at that point. That's kind of what you just said reminded me of, is, like, you can't see it to your eye, but sometimes it just takes like time to really see how the paths form.
Exactly. It takes time, and then it takes that forging. And I love that you brought up that fungi, because that fungi, if you watch that video, it's always moving. it's like it's going this way and that way and this way and that way. It doesn't stop moving. Just similar to what you mentioned earlier about your favorite quote, which is like, yeah, you have to keep growing in that direction. And then like, you have to be able to execute. So that relentlessness is what makes, I think, entrepreneurs really successful, is like, you don't quit. You don't quit.
You just
keep going. And right when you think you're about to quit, you're like, oh my gosh, no, I see it again. And then you keep going and you keep going. And that's why I think like the best entrepreneurs we look up to, the business owners, the best people who are running things, are the ones who know in deep in their heart, there's something here and I'm not going to stop at any point until I get there.
100%. And as we're kind of getting towards the end of this episode, what is like one thing about yourself that you don't often get to share with others, but you wish everybody knew about you?
Ooh, I feel like that's a good question, because I'm quite open, you know what I mean? Like, but I think,
take your time.
Yeah, I think this is so funny because, you know, when I was spending the last 6 weeks in Boulder, I'm a very extroverted person. Like even when I take my like Myers-Briggs, I'm like a 73% on extroversion. Like it's huge. But I love just being alone. I like sitting in my thoughts. I think, you know, it takes years to cultivate that, but like I just like being by myself and really enjoying my own company. So I think that like there's often a stereotype that extroverted people get, and not that it's good or bad. It's just like that stereotype that you always want to be around people, you love people, blah, blah, blah. And I do love people. I do. And I love being around people and I love learning about them and having these like bonds, deeper bonds. But at the same time, I could just sit alone by myself for days and just think and just think and think about everything, you know?
There's one thing about me, and my friends sometimes like poke fun at it, is I don't really listen to music in the car at all. Sometimes I sit in just silence because my head is enough for me sometimes.
Exactly. And you're just like thinking, and it's like, it's not even like you're overthinking. I'm just like having a conversation with myself.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It's really, there's a dialogue happening here. If I look like I'm staring in space, no, I'm having a conversation.
Hello, I'm talking to somebody. Yeah.
Sometimes you are your best company. Sometimes you are your worst enemy. You never know.
You never know.
Okay. So the very last thing we'll do here today, and I'll give you one last opportunity to share your closing thoughts, but there is a brand new segment that I want to introduce to the podcast, and you're going to help me do it. It is called Unpopular Opinions. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I actually went to Reddit and I looked up Unpopular Opinions and I chose a few of them. And what we're going to do is I'm going to read it off to you, and then we're just going to share our thoughts on it.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. And we'll make it real quick. We can get it done in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Let's do her. Okay. So first things first, we'll start off with a kind of funny, goofy one.
Okay.
So, unpopular opinion: zoos are not inherently immoral. I have a very niche thought on this because I refuse to go back to zoos.
Okay.
I recently did go to SeaWorld though, for the first time in years.
How was it?
Basically my entire thoughts on like zoos and animals in captivity is, well, one time when I was working in Nashville, I used to work in Nashville as a saleswoman. We went to a zoo in Tennessee and it's like blistering hot. It's in the summertime and we saw a bunch of exotic animals in these outdoor cages. None of them moved. They were all extremely dormant because of like I think it's just how hot it was. And after that experience, I refused to go back to a zoo. And so I've never been to the San Diego Zoo. I've never been able to do it. And I know some zoos are more ethical than others, but I just can't shake the thought of like how animals are like when they're free versus in a captivity like that. So I don't know. I think it's hard to accept them sometimes for me.
No, I agree with you. I do think in terms of immorality, I'd say it's, you know, obviously morality is a gray area for most things, but like for me, I think if you're taking care of like sick animals or like animals that were kind of like left behind and then taking care of them, recuperating them, and then, you know, maybe they get a little bit too like quote unquote domesticated to go back into the wild, I think that could be a use case where I'm like, hey, then it's okay to keep them in the zoo as long as they're being fed and taken care of, have the right ecosystem, all that. But then at the same time, I'm like, I feel like planet Earth is enough. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like let's just watch a David Attenborough. Like, let's chill. Like, I feel like I see so much more than if I go, you know, to the zoo or something, because I'm like, this is insane that we get all this footage, but like, it's really, really cool to see the animals. And I think that's like why zoos kind of came about, was like, how do we show people that like there's more to the world than just humans?
Yeah.
And I think if we are like following that thread, I can see why zoos became what they did. But at the same time, like, you know, is there a need for that now, given the technology we have, where we can just like have a drone follow like a herd of zebras, you know? And still
that's some meta thinking right there.
Yeah.
That's some meta thinking.
We thinking out here. Always thinking.
All this thinking is overwhelming. I agree with your point though. Like I could accept, because I understand rehabilitation of animals and they just do need like a little bit of assistance in certain cases. I agree with that 100%. But it's also, you just gotta trust that like humans will make the decent decisions in their in regards to the animals in that case. Never thought I'd be answering a question like that on the pod, so thank you, Reddit. Okay, this next one I'm interested in. So this one's from not Lenny, Bruce.
Okay.
So, unpopular opinion: hating small talk is a sign of poor social skills.
Okay, I don't like small talk at all.
I don't like small talk.
Yeah, but I will say, I don't think neither of us has poor social skills.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Wait, let me read that again.
Yeah.
Does it say hating small talk is a sign of poor social skills? I'll read a little bit into it. It's okay if your distaste is situational, e.g., which I don't even know what that means.
Like example.
Okay, got it. You're taking public transport or in a doctor's waiting room, but if you hate small talk on principle, you're probably socially inept. Okay. I think I understand what they're trying to say. So there's two sides to this coin in my eyes. So just general small talk when you're like meeting new people and you can't necessarily come up with like deeper topics to talk about, but you're actually trying to build a connection with somebody. I think that's when it's not so acceptable. Like, you come on, like, let's dig deeper into like actually who this person is. Football, whether it'll be there when it be there. But I think part of the context that this person's trying to provide is when you are like in just a public setting and there's people around you, rather than ignoring them, you actually like crack up some conversations. And that's, I think, what they're trying to say.
I see.
So I see both sides of that.
I think though, I mean, I don't know about you, but I also find I still struggle, even if like, I mean, I have such a rep with my friends. Like, they're always like, okay, like, all right, if there's like a deep question, they're like, okay, I know Shivi asked that question, because they're like, they're always like, yeah, okay. But for me, I'm like, I think that the best conversations, like even if I ask people, like if I'm out in public and I, you know, maybe have like some downtime, and I'll be like, oh, okay, like, you know, there's a family with kids. I'll be like, oh yeah, like, how old are your kids? And like go in it like that. And then like just like start having these conversations about like, oh, tell me more about like how your kids are. Do you see yourself in them? Like blah, blah, blah. Like those kind of things. And I don't know why, but people seem really receptive to it. And especially, I will say, the weirdest thing is the deepest conversations I've had have always been on the airplane. Where you would think is like the most shallow, superficial conversation, right? But the deepest conversations I've had have been on the airplane.
Why pay for therapy when you just book a flight?
Just book flights, talk to a stranger, and then never see them again.
And
like
never see them again. It's like the perfect formula right there. But that's so true though. And sometimes you have like the deepest conversations with the people that you know you're never going to meet again, because you never really have to further explain it or anything as well. So I kind of see that side of the coin as well.
Interesting.
That's a good one.
That is good.
Let me see. Okay, we'll do one last one. And this one's interesting. Let's see. Someone else is... Okay. Unpopular opinion. This one's from dry_fueled_9216. Okay. Being street smart and book smart are both equally important.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I would agree with that. Okay, I agree with it for the most part, except for also I think there are outliers. So it's like there's just some people who naturally are just more street smart. I feel like, I don't think I'm not book smart, but I never thought of myself as a book smart person, but I don't think I'm not book smart. Like, I've been in the advanced classes, I took in the hard classes, always run in the middle range within those classes, if that, but And so I always put myself as like a street smart person.
Yeah, I see.
But I don't know. I think it's very hard to say most people are book smart and street smart, though. I think everyone has their own.
I agree.
Balance.
I think like, yeah, there's a balance, but I think the more balanced you are, the more it just turns into common sense. And I think common sense is hard to find. You know what I mean? So it's like because I was very much like not street smart. You know what I mean? Like I was very naive, didn't know how to play the game, you know, but very book smart. And so very high on that. But the second I started learning street smarts, which in my opinion are like being able to like understand other people, their MO, and being able to like know how that plays out for
social cues,
that kind of stuff, like being able to know like I mean, I don't mean this in a negative way, like, but literally when to play the game and when not to is like that to me. I feel like when I learned about that was how I became even boosted. Like I was like, oh my God. And why? Because now all of a sudden I have an application for my sense, right? So now I have common sense. And so I really do think having a good balance of those really helps people, but you need to have both for sure.
Yes, you do need both. Like I think so when it comes to book smarts, it's like a very methodical and like it ties into logic, I think, a lot more sometimes. And like I think of book smart as like numbers and data and inputs and then creating like the designated output that was like planned for it,
like a lot of discipline, a lot of like rigor, that kind of side of stuff.
Even when it comes to like studying English and literature majors, I feel like it does take a lot of street smart to like really excel in those certain studies,
because you have to know that how it's applied.
It's like it's super abstract, and so
love it.
So fun. Shivi, thank you so much for joining the pod today. It was so much fun. And so how can people find you on the internet, and then do you have any closing thoughts?
So the website that I have up right now is called Legacy the App. You can find me on LinkedIn. That is my only social media. So I'm Shivanjali Singh, which is my full name. And I think closing thoughts. Amazing talking with you as always, Riley. As always. And I think if you to the listeners out there, if you just know you're meant to create something, make a difference, take the risk. This is your sign to take the risk. That's all I gotta say.
This is your sign to do something. It's November of 2023. We're about to start 2024. Oh, what is like that one thing that you're like, what's that one goal in 2024 that you're just like, it's gonna keep you up at night? You're gonna think about it in the car silently without any music. What is that one thing in your head right now?
I think learning how to really build a business. Like you think it, you read the books. Like, I mean, this is going back to my book smartness, right? Like you read the books, you follow the right blogs, you know what it takes. But then when you're in it, you're like, oh man, I'm just scratching the surface.
I don't know what it's like.
I
don't know, but I'm just going.
Like you're paving so much of your own path, because it's one of those situations where it's like everything you listen to and everything you hear, probably looking back, a few months, a few years from now, I'll be like, oh yeah, that advice makes sense. But when you're in it, you really have to tailor it for you. And so you're like, okay, how can I take this piece of advice, go back to like maybe 3 layers before it became as full-fledged as it is now, and apply that to myself.
True.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that, I think my thing for 2024 is like, how do you really run a business as me, as Shivi? How do I really run a business?
I'm excited for you. And I'm excited that I caught you at this time period too, so then we can reflect on this.
I know, we're reflecting.
I know. We have a little girls and goals thing scheduled for next month. I totally sent you that request without even like giving you
But
any
I was
context.
Here with you. I was like, I know exactly what this is going to be. The girlies are out.
The girlies are outside planning.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining. For those who have never listened to it before or listened to Baddies Mean Business before, please give a follow on Instagram, LinkedIn, not so much Twitter. Sorry guys, sorry tech Twitter, I'm not on Twitter so much, but you can also watch this full episode on YouTube if you're listening currently, and it should be available. Episodes come out every Sunday. But anyways, thank you Shivi so much for joining, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Thank you, Riley.